By 1944, the war in Europe had reached a point where something decisive had to happen. Germany still controlled most of Western Europe, and while the Soviet Union was pushing from the east, there was no second front in the west. The Allies knew that as long as Germany could focus most of its strength in one direction, the war would continue indefinitely. An invasion of France had been discussed for years, but it was not something that could be rushed. It required coordination on a scale that had never been attempted before. Every part of the operation had to work. The ships, the aircraft, the landing forces, the timing, and even the weather. A failure would not just delay the war, it could set everything back by years. The Germans understood this as well. Along the coast of Western Europe, they had spent years building defenses. Concrete bunkers were placed along the shoreline, equipped with machine guns and artillery. Beaches were filled with obstacles designed to destroy landing craft. Mines were hidden beneath the sand and in the water. The coastline had been turned into a barrier meant to stop any invasion before it could begin. However, the Germans did not know exactly where the attack would come. This uncertainty became one of the most important parts of the Allied plan. In the months leading up to the invasion, the Allies created a large-scale deception operation. Fake armies were built using inflatable tanks and wooden aircraft. Radio traffic was carefully staged to suggest troop movements that were not real. Double agents fed false information to the Germans, reinforcing the idea that the invasion would take place at Pas-de-Calais, the shortest crossing between Britain and France. Because of this, German forces were spread out. Some of their strongest units were positioned away from the actual landing area, waiting for an attack that would never come. Meanwhile, in southern England, the real invasion force was gathering. It was enormous. Thousands of ships filled the ports. Landing craft were prepared. Aircraft were lined up on airfields. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers waited. For many of them, this would be their first time in combat. They knew what was coming. They had seen the maps, the plans, the briefings, but none of that could fully prepare them for what it would actually be like. Originally, the invasion was scheduled for June 5, 1944, but the weather was poor. High waves and heavy cloud cover made the operation too dangerous. The decision was made to delay. Even though this added more risk, the longer they waited, the greater the chance that the Germans might detect what was happening. Then a short break in the weather appeared. It wasn't perfect, but it was good enough. June 6th was chosen. During the night before the landings, airborne troops were dropped behind enemy lines. Their role was to disrupt German defenses, secure key locations, and prevent reinforcements from reaching the beaches quickly. The drops were scattered. Some soldiers landed miles away from their intended positions. Units were broken apart, and communication was limited. Many paratroopers had to operate in small groups, relying on initiative rather than orders. Despite this, they still managed to create confusion and delay German response. As morning approached, the main invasion force moved toward the coast. The sea was rough. Landing craft rose and fell with the waves. Many soldiers were already exhausted or seasick before reaching land. Ahead of them, the coastline of Normandy slowly came into view. 5 landing zones had been selected: Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juno, and Sword. Each would face different conditions, but all of them were defended. Naval bombardment began before the landings, with ships firing at German positions along the coast. Aircraft also dropped bombs, but not all of these strikes were accurate. Many defenses remained intact. When the first landing craft reached the beaches, the reality of the situation became clear. At Utah Beach, American forces landed slightly off target, but this turned out to be an advantage. They encountered less resistance than expected and were able to move inland relatively quickly. At other beaches, progress was slower, but steady. At Omaha Beach, everything went wrong. The German defenses were stronger than anticipated, and the terrain made the situation worse. High ground overlooked the beach, allowing defenders to fire down on the incoming troops. Machine gun positions covered the open sand, leaving little protection for soldiers as they disembarked. As landing craft approached, many were hit. Some soldiers never made it out of the water. Others reached the beach but found themselves pinned down. unable to move forward or retreat. Equipment was lost. Units were separated. Command structure began to break down. For a period of time, the situation was close to failure. What changed it was not a single coordinated action, but many smaller ones. Small groups of soldiers began to move forward wherever they could. They used craters, obstacles, and any available cover to advance. Some climbed the bluffs overlooking the beach, attacking German positions from angles that were not expected. These actions were not part of a single plan. They were individual decisions made under pressure. Over time, they began to have an effect. German defenses started to weaken. Openings were created. More troops were able to move forward. By late morning, the situation at Omaha Beach had stabilized enough for the invasion to continue. Across all 5 beaches, the Allies had managed to establish a foothold. It was fragile, it was incomplete, but it was enough. Throughout the rest of the day, reinforcements continued to arrive. More soldiers, vehicles, and supplies were brought ashore. The beachhead slowly expanded as forces pushed inland. The German response was slower than expected, partly due to the initial confusion and partly because of the earlier deception. Some German commanders believed that the Normandy landings were a diversion and that the main invasion would still occur elsewhere. This hesitation gave the Allies valuable time. In the days that followed, the fighting moved inland. The terrain of Normandy created new challenges. Hedgerows divided fields into small sections, making movement difficult and limiting visibility. Progress was slow, and battles often took place at close range. However, the Allies continued to build strength. More troops arrived, more equipment, more support. Eventually, this led to a breakout from the Normandy region, allowing Allied forces to advance further into France. The landings on June 6 did not end the war, but they marked a turning point. From that point forward, Germany was forced to fight on multiple fronts, stretching its resources and weakening its ability to respond. What began as a risky and uncertain operation became the foundation for the liberation of Western Europe. The success of the invasion was not the result of a single event, but the combination of planning, deception, coordination, and the actions of individual soldiers. It was not quick, it was not easy, but it worked. And once the Allies were established in France, there was no turning back.